How do you describe a place with over 10,000 years of history? How do you experience a culture that has shaped what humanity calls culture? How do you describe a cuisine that has shaped what humanity calls cuisine? You do it one trip at a time, month after month, year after year. And this is an accumulation of 5 years of those trips. Going to Turkey, experiencing Turkey, and describing the beautiful, mysterious, captivating, and always amazing country of Turkey. Come with me on a journey through not just the current day culture of Turkey, but over 10,000 years of history. We're going to be experiencing sites from Istanbul to the Far East. Sites that you know to sites that you've probably never heard of. Let's go. Today, we're going to be going to a location that has affected almost everybody in existence today, but most people don't even know it exists. I'm talking about the Hatay province of Turkey. This is the birthplace of Christianity and a UNESCO World Gastronomy Site. So what that means is we're going to be seeing where Christianity was first mentioned by St. Paul, and we're going to be getting some amazing food. So let's start the adventure. Welcome to Hatay. So this is the old town right here. These streets date back to the 4th century BC. Originally founded by the Seleucid Empire, Antioch and Hatay as a whole have been called home by the Byzantine Empire, Seljuks, Crusaders, Mamelukes, the French, the British, the Ottomans, and finally the Turkish. In the old town, we found a beautiful restaurant named Cognac. You walk through the entryway and it opens up into a beautiful, expansive courtyard. The restaurant itself serves amazing traditional Hatay food. For our meal, we got this delicious selection of mezes that range from Turkish to Arabic influence. We got this unidentified dish that was basically a crisp flatbread with some onion, tomato, parsley, and a nice sauce in between. And then for the main course, of course, you've got to go with kebab. This is the Adana kebab. However, I would recommend trying the hashish kebab, which is something that's a little bit more unique to the Hatay province. And after that delicious meal, it's back to the streets. Alright, so this is the Long Bazaar in Hatay, an ancient bazaar that's been operating for hundreds of years. Hatay's Bazaar, which is basically just one long street stretching for what feels like miles. Alright, so while we were walking, we came across this hotel in the middle of the Long Bazaar. It is sick. It's called the Konak Avul Boutique Hotel. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's been around since 1890. And this is a crazy one. If you've got the cash and you want somewhere to stay, I think I definitely recommend it. So one of the cool things about this place is you're just going down random side alleys and you run into places like this. The crazy things about walking through a city like this or an area like this is just how old everything is. You go somewhere and just every side street is swarming with history. It's like every building's hundreds of years old and a lot of them are still lived in. We talked to some locals and these places here are still mostly lived in. Some have fallen into disrepair, become businesses, hotels, but it is quite something to see. And
the fact that it's still sort of like a living history makes it all that much more interesting to me. It's not just history that has happened, it's history that's being made here, and that's something special. Look at that. Fun fact about Hatay, pretty much every empire, every sort of civilization that's existed in this area has at one point had Hatay under their control. So 100 years ago this would have been the capital of Syria. Now obviously it's a Turkish province. That's just how fast things change, and it's something. And that's how they make newspapers in Hatay, or at least some newspapers. Crazy to think those machines are probably 50, 60 years old and they're still running. That's one of the cool things about coming to a city like this. There's just history intermingled and still being used. It's not on display. It's, you know, in use.
As day turned to night, we had one stop left to make, and that was for the dessert that everybody should try when they go to Hatay. And that dessert is kunafe, a delicious, syrupy, cheesy dish that isn't quite what you think when you think dessert, but it still is amazing. And after that, with a tuckered out kid, we had no choice but to head back to the hotel.
Alright, it's time for some breakfast. That's one of the things that Antakya, and I think most of Hatay, is actually known for.
For breakfast, we headed over to an absolutely delectable restaurant called Sultan. Here we ordered a Turkish breakfast, which was only 100 Turkish liras. For those unfamiliar with what a Turkish breakfast is, I suggest you familiarize yourself with this concept. In Turkey, it's basically an institution, and it is what you order for breakfast. Turkish breakfast is basically a variety of appetizers, main dishes, sides, and everything in between delivered directly to your table. In the case of Sultan, Turkish breakfast consisted of everything from delicious bread and jam to burek to eggs and sucuk to some local classics such as bread, olive oil, and za'atar, which is something I definitely recommend everybody tries.
So one of the cool things too about the breakfast here, just the food in general here, it's a mix of sort of your Arabic food and your Turkish food. So it's something that you can't get in most places in Turkey, but here you can. So it's unique to Hatay. Definitely worth the trip, I'd say. With all the history here and the food, it's almost like a must-see. It's crazy that more people don't know about this place. And this, what I'm about to show you, is Hatay in all of its beauty. So looking from the old town, you see stretching up the mountains all these places, all these houses. Now, and when you're on top of the mountains, when you go up a little bit, this is the view you get. And that's Hatay in all of its glory. This is a city that's over 2,400 years old. It's got over 1 million people living here. And these views just show just how massive and expansive this city is. It's more than just an old town. It's more than just the old town. It's a living, breathing city that's still doing a lot. So this is really awesome. This is the Museum Hotel. And what happened here was, in the middle of building a hotel, they found all of these mosaics. It's a 5th century mansion that they uncovered underneath the hotel. So instead of just paving over it or doing something rather drab, they decided to build the hotel literally over this dig site. So right down here, you've got a beautiful mosaic that probably dates back over 1,000 years and all over the place. Basically everything in this museum came from one 5th century mansion, and the artwork here is just so now we are headed up to the Church of St. Peter. So the Church of St. Peter is actually the first sermon that was given where the word Christian was ever mentioned. So that's why this is known as the birthplace of Christianity, because it's literally here that St. Peter first mentioned the word and pretty much kicked off the whole religion that is the behemoth that we know it to be today. Look at that view, by the way. Not a bad view on the walk up here. So yeah, let's head over to the Church of St. Peter.
After doing a bit of research, it appears this church is a bit more contentious than I first thought. Some historians argue that the church was created in 40 AD by the Apostle Peter himself and is the birthplace of Christianity. However, others argue that the church only dates back to the 4th or 5th century. But what we do know is that in 1000 something AD, Crusaders came, they remodeled the church, and then in the 1800s, the French came and put it back into what they believed to be its original form.
This is where St. Peter's gave his speech that first mentioned Christianity. So this is where Christianity was founded, right at that very altar. And back there you've got some water and some caves that you can go explore, but that's, well, it's sectioned off now. Now we are headed to another museum, the Hatay Archaeological Museum. If you're in Hatay for a little bit longer than a couple days, or maybe even a couple days, these are cool restaurants that you got behind me. Basically what it is there's these waterfalls that are coming down basically a mountain, and you get to dip your feet in the water while you eat. So it's sort of a cool dining concept. We're not going to go to one, but I'm just going to show you sort of what they look like here. Good morning from Adiyaman. Today what we're going to be doing is visiting a World Heritage UNESCO site that is over 2,000 years old. This is the ancient burial tombs of a once feared and revered king. What I'm talking about is Nemrut, or Mount Nemrut as people know it. This is an area that has tons of statues and a bunch of really cool stuff, but you gotta wait and see it, so let's get going. Alright, on the way to Nemrut, you've got to stop here. It's literally right on the way. This is a bridge that's about 2,000 years old. It was built between like 100 and 200 AD. I don't know the exact date. It's built by a Roman Empire back in the day. And yeah, this is an ancient bridge that we're walking across right now. Literally almost 2,000 years old. That's crazy. It's right on the way. You just turn off the road. You come here. You'll see it. And you get some beautiful views from the top. And the bridge itself looks quite stunning. But here we go, check it out. Look at that crystal clear mountain water. Now this is Sendar Bridge, an ancient Roman bridge that was built almost 2,000 years ago. It's just crazy to see history like this just sitting out in the open. There's no pass you've got to pay for or anything like that. It's just completely open. There's literally no one here. So you have the bridge pretty much all to yourself, and I'd say it's definitely worth a stop. It's not quite as old as Nemrut, but a couple hundred years newer, still is pretty damn old.
And now we're off the mountain.
All right, so let's begin the journey. I got the kiddo and we're headed up the stairs at Mount Nemrut. We're taking the western terrace. No reason why. Beautiful view up here, as you can see. Just views for miles. One thing you definitely do notice up here is that there's no trees. I think that's because we're so high up. Definitely out of breath a little faster. Maybe she put on some weight, but I don't think that's it. Anyways, let's go. 15? So yeah, I think the craziest thing about this is just how hard it is for me to get up with a 20-pound kiddo, and to think people would be taking it. They didn't drive up here, they didn't drive to a parking lot, climb up some stairs. They went up this with rocks. I don't know how you do it. I'm excited though. Hopefully this one's gonna be worth the little hike. She lost her hat. I got it though. All right, we're about halfway up the stairs. A lot of stairs. Doing the final few stairs here, and then we're at the top. Feels like quite the achievement, or it shows how out of shape I am. Who knows? There we go, made it to Mount Nemrut. It really is something, it's pretty cool.
Under the white tarp is the burial site of King Antiochus I, who ruled the Commagene Empire from 69 BC to 34 BC. These 6-ton stone statues were all brought up the mountain.
All right, now we're headed over to the eastern side of the mountain. Let's see which one's better, west or east. East is definitely a bit rockier to climb up. So yeah, make sure you don't wear the flip-flops or something. Careful.
All of those pebbles were brought up and stacked there to make a mountaintop that is an additional 10 to 15 feet higher than the natural mountain.
So just to give you an idea of how different the paths are, this is the eastern path. Alright, so I know I said we made it to Mount Nemrut before, but I think this is where you actually want to go, eastern side. It's definitely a bit better. basically, here's how it works. You can go up on either section and you get to walk all the way around the hill. So it doesn't really matter which side you come up. You can walk around. I definitely recommend it. There's two really cool spots. You get sort of the front of the tomb. I believe that would be right here. You get Zeus, Apollo, and Tokios, along with a few other characters like lions and stuff like that up here. And on the other side, you got more statues, and I think the tomb of Nimrud, the king. This is definitely worth the hike. It's always amazing to see history and think about how long ago this was and the amount of work that it took to build something like this. This isn't just a tomb. They literally built a tomb on top of a mountain and then built a hill on top of that mountain to make it even taller. I guess it's time to go. Bye.
And just like that, we're in Diabakir. Diabakir is a Kurdish majority city with a ton of history. So the Romans used to occupy this area, and we've got some amazing Roman stuff to check out. We've got city walls, we've got castles, and we've got some old inns and places that travelers used to stop at over 500 years ago. So let's go check that out. Diabakir is a city located in southeastern Turkey. It's a predominantly Kurdish city with a storied history spanning many empires. The Armenians, the Assyrians, the Ratu, the Armenians, the Persians, the Mendes, the Seleucids, the Perinthians, and the Romans have controlled the city. In fact, the Romans built the largest city walls in the world here.
Right behind me we have the city walls of Diabakir. They're a lot bigger than I expected, so I can't wait to get up there and just see what it's all about. They go on for so long too, you don't expect it.
But that's an adventure for tomorrow because we got in a little bit late and there's an amazing restaurant we just have to make it to. The first thing you notice when you step out onto the streets of Diabakir is the energy. It is vibrant, it is busy, and people are everywhere. There's shops selling famous Diabakir watermelon, something that they're known for all around Turkey, and merchants on the side of the street selling sandwiches or whatever wares they have. It is busy, it is energetic, it is vibrant, and it is alive, and I love it.
So now we're at a restaurant called Foriegn. It's supposed to be one of the better restaurants in Diabakir, so we'll see how good it is. But the decorations and the atmosphere just definitely holds up.
And boy, oh boy, this restaurant did not disappoint. Foriegn is one of the better restaurants in Diabakir, and in fact, it might be one of the better restaurants in all of Turkey. It has a wide range of food, and it is set in the perfect environment. It's a historical hammam that dates back hundreds of years. It's been renovated and polished, but it still has that old school feel. The meals were amazing for everybody, and the price was, again, phenomenal. It cost only about 10 USD for the full meal. In addition, at the end of the meal, you get a coffee that you can only find in the Diabakir and Mardin region.
Alright, and this is Diabakir by night. We're on sort of the main street here. You can see it's pretty actually live. During the day, it's like 100 degrees out. It was 108, which is like 43 Celsius, but at night it gets a little bit better, and people start to come out and enjoy themselves. Don't think it's a drinking city though. This street back here is being remodeled right now, or renovated, whatever you want to call it. So it's not quite as busy here, but this is actually like a very vibrant city at night. It surprised me. Cool, really like main boulevard. You can walk down and take in the lights, do some shopping, get some great food. And honestly, some of the food here is spectacular. We went to Foriegn, amazing restaurant. I think you've seen some shots of that. Yeah, it's actually like a pretty awesome street. Not dead by any means. And right now it's 9:41 on a Wednesday night. This street is currently being renovated, but you've seen some shots from the other street, and that's even better than this. So yeah, definitely a cool city to visit. It reminds me of Istanbul, but if you go to like Beşiktaş Street or something like that. Not with the drinking, it's not a drinking street, but it's a pretty cool street.
And for anyone interested in how much a trip like this might cost, let me tell you, it is cheap. Well, that world-class meal that you just saw cost only 10 to 15 USD, the hotel deals are even better. A hotel with a view like this was only 180 Turkish lira or 10 USD. Every city in Turkey is famous for certain foods. For Diabakir, those foods would be watermelon and a specific dolma that's made using dried pepper and eggplants. But now it's time for an early morning visit to those famed city walls.
So this is one of the awesome things about Diabakir. They've got these city walls that stretch for 12 or 13 kilometers. These are actually the largest walls outside of the Great Wall of China. And as far as city walls go, this is the biggest city wall you will find anywhere in the world. And they're in insanely good shape. So most of these walls are actually fully intact. Look right here. So as you can see right there, this wall back here, fully intact. There's a little bit of crumbling, but overall really good shape. And you can see right here, they've set up a nice little cafe out here. You can come up here, get a coffee, get some water, a tea, if you're into hot drinks in the middle of summer, which is when I'm here. It's 108 degrees out right now, so don't think I'll be doing tea or coffee. But yeah, it's insane to be able to go over this history and actually see the use cases that they found for it. So yeah, they've set up hotels here, they've set up cafes, they've set up shops, all over the place. Anywhere you go in Diabakir, you've got these city walls, and they've turned them into something modern, something cool. Look at this. So right in here, you have a classic Diabakir setup. So this behind me is sort of a classic Diabakir evening setup. You get your blankets on the ground, you got some pillows, and you got a small table right here. Except it's set up inside of the city wall. But yeah, this is a classic Diabakir setup. When you go through parks or anything like that, you see the locals out, they've got their blankets down, their pillows down, and they're just having a coffee, having a tea, chatting with each other, and sort of having a good night. When we were out, people were out until maybe 12, midnight on a Wednesday, just hanging out in the park and talking with each other. It's something you don't see in most places of the world. The internet and a lot of technology sort of replace that human element, and here they've got it, which is really nice to see. So yeah, I'd love to stay and show you more of this amazing castle wall, but we've got to get going to the next stop because it's something just as exciting, and it's getting really hot out here. So Diabakir overall though is a pretty cool city. These city walls are something I haven't seen anywhere else, and the fact that they've actually found really unique uses for them, that's something that I haven't seen anywhere else either. Usually it's just the city walls. You come up here as part of a museum pass or something like this, but in Diabakir you come up here as part of your day. If you want to get a water, hang out with a friend or whatever, this is where the locals would come, and this is where you can come too. So yeah, it's quite something to take in, and I like it. One thing to note though, the city has had a bit of a troubled past, so there's a bit of a war or battle, depending on how you would describe it, that happened right in this area. It's majority Kurdish, so there were some issues with that, and the Turkish military came in. I don't know much about the politics, but you can still feel a lot of tension in the air here, and what you'll notice is there's a lot of military stuff going on, right? You've got a lot of checkpoints, you've got a huge military base out here, and you've got a lot of sort of very well-equipped police officers. I don't have any videos or any photos or anything like that because it tends to be a really bad idea to take pictures of the police and military operations in areas where people are a little bit skittish. But yeah, overall, I've felt completely safe here, so take that for what you will. There's nothing here that's led me to believe that there's any danger or anything like that. Just a little bit of a troubled past, and you can still see it on people's faces and in their actions. There's a little bit more tension here than most or pretty much any other part of Turkey that I've been to. So that's one thing that is worth noting. I don't want to skip over it. But yeah, let's get on with this. Just down the street from the cafe, this is another piece of the castle wall. You can see it's a little bit popped open here, but you can still sort of go in. You can see here. Let me show you. So you can see it's in a little bit of disrepair there, but still, you don't see that too often, and this gaping hole is the exception and not the rule. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend going in. I wouldn't recommend going in there. There's a sign that literally says "Caution: Falling Rocks," and it smells. So yeah, that's the city walls of Diabakir. definitely the reason you're going to be coming here to visit if you do come. I think this is probably the most touristic piece of the city. These walls, just walking along them, knowing the history happened and seeing the condition they're in, it really gives you an idea and a feel for how this city once was when it was under Roman rule. Right? So back behind me you have the mountain gates, which are the famed gates of the city of Diabakir. Unfortunately they're under construction right now, or reconstruction, so we're not going to be seeing those, but if you come here, probably worth checking out, I'd say.
As we walk the streets of Diabakir, the storefronts beckon. They get spices and sweets from all over the region. Syrian, Arabic, Kurdish, and Turkish. It all beckons. But we're running late and we've got a medieval inn to visit. So let's go.
Hoş geldiniz. Buyurun. Meşhur Bey. Buyurun.
Alright, and behind me is the Hasan Pasha Inn. Over 500 years old. This is the perfect place to come if you're looking for a drink, a meal, or a little bit of nargile, otherwise known as shisha. This also seems to be where you can get a lot of touristic items. So if you check out behind me, you've got a bunch of souvenirs. So if you're looking for souvenirs from Diabakir, this just might be the place to go, or if you're looking for a quick coffee, drink, or whatever. It's a good choice for travelers for the last 500 years, so you probably can't go wrong.
And while the covers over the courtyard did give a nice reprieve from the sun, it was even nicer to go into the gold section and get a little bit of air conditioning, because boy oh boy was that needed. And on the way out of the city, we had one final sight: the Hevsel Gardens that had been supplying the city with subsistence for thousands of years.
Welcome to Mardin. So this right here is Mardin's Old Town area. So that's why you can see all these old buildings behind me. But yeah, this is Mardin. It's one of those places that everybody in Turkey knows about, but no one outside of Turkey knows about.
Right now we're walking down the main street of Old Town Mardin, and like much of Mardin, this is a street that I have never seen anywhere else in the world. The coloring is beautiful, the Assyrian architecture is amazing, and the vibes are just perfection. From this street are a bunch of narrow streets that go on for miles. Going down these streets, you find that most cars can't even get down them, to such an extent that donkeys are used to collect garbage. As you stroll down this street or many of the other streets in Mardin, you really get a feel for how this city must have felt hundreds of years ago. It's extremely unique, it's beautiful, it fits the area perfectly, and despite still being in Turkey, it feels like you've traveled to almost a whole different country.
Like walking through a maze. These streets just twist and turn, but everywhere you go is beautiful, so you can't go wrong. I think we took a wrong turn. Walking around, it feels like you're walking through a museum or like some sort of movie set. It's just so unique, I feel like. Like Mardin is a very unique city. Every brick is like this color, so you get that like whitish glow to everything. And yeah, it reminds me a bit of Venice, but without the canals. All the winding passageways though. It's definitely something to behold. So yeah, if you're in Turkey, Mardin is definitely a city that you should see if you get the chance, because it's worth it. Right, Chloe? feels like someplace out of like Indiana Jones or something. It's crazy. Just walking through these like narrow streets that barely fit like 2 person abreast. It's really something. And there we go, we made it back to the main street, right back there. Boom. Let's go. Things I definitely recommend trying here is the coffee. It's a little bit different from a normal coffee. It's like I don't know how to describe it. I'll try and figure out the words as we go, but it's really, really good. We're definitely buying some beans. It's like Turkish coffee, but a little bit sweeter and a little bit more like aromatic. It is really delicious, so definitely recommend.
After a nice coffee break, it was time to hit the streets again, this time in search of the perfect restaurant. Unfortunately, over my few days in Mardin, I was unable to find any restaurants that I absolutely must recommend, but one thing that did blow me away is the views that most of these restaurants have. You walk in through the restaurants, they have a stunning facade, it looks beautiful, you feel that old Assyrian architecture all around you, and then you open up to a stunning vista showing you a panoramic view down the mountainside and into the fields below. It is breathtaking. Stop, and it was a stop that we could not miss. It was to try and buy some of the world famous Mardin wine. Personally, I like the red wine a lot more than the white in Mardin and throughout Turkey. What I found in Mardin when it comes to wine pretty much holds up to what I found about wine in Turkey in general. The white wine tends to be a little bit too dry for me, but the red wine is spectacular. It's fruity, it's sweet, it's the perfect balance for a red, and the wine in Mardin was no exception. We bought as much as we could. With that final stop, it was time to head back to the hotel. Way back, we did stop to sample a few of the local sweets, all of which were utterly delectable, but with the sleepless baby, we didn't have time to film too much of that. But that's okay, because next up was a city equally or possibly even more beautiful than Mardin.
So we just saw Dezu Zafaran Monastery. It's pretty cool here. So this used to be the head of the Assyrian religion, which is a big one in this area. And actually before that, 4,000 years ago, it was a Sumerian church that was here. They eventually converted to Assyrian, and that's how you got the whole monastery that you're gonna see, or that you saw in the photos. But yeah, it used to be Sumerian. It was basically 4,000 years old. Interesting how they made the tombs. So they made them by putting dirt in. They put the stones on top, let the stones set, and then they pulled all the dirt out, and that's how you get the tomb that you're looking at.
And above this insanely old Sumerian temple lies an insanely old monastery. Dating back to 493 AD, this monastery has existed for almost 2,000 years. And for almost 1,000 years of that monastery's existence, it was actually the head of the Assyrian religion. From 1160 to 1932. However, despite this move, a lot of beautiful Assyrian relics still remain in this church for people like myself to enjoy.
Alright, and this is Dara, an ancient city that dates back over 2,000 years. So it's about 45 minutes away from Mardin. Definitely recommend coming here. I mean, this is something to see. It's something different from what you get in Mardin. What we're walking through right now are tombs. Alright, and now we're inside one of these tombs. Pretty sure these are tombs. You can see this is quite extensive. It reminds me a bit of Cappadocia. Alright, so next what we're going to be going into is an ancient 3-story graveyard. So this was built in the 500 ADs. Supposedly there are hundreds of bodies found in here. Let's go. So yeah, right behind me is an ancient Roman graveyard that's I got it up there. It's going down some stairs. So it is 3 stories tall. It's got hundreds of bodies, or had hundreds of bodies, and it's 1,500 years old. It's crazy to see history like that, and it's actually like a beautiful graveyard. They've got a chimney of sorts, or a hole leading upwards, and that's because they believed that the souls needed an area to just sort of escape through. So their graveyard had that hole so that the souls could go up into the sky, I guess, into the heavens. But yeah, it's a cool piece of history, and it's something that you really don't hear much about, but it's pretty crazy. It reminds me almost of like Petra or something like that. Now we're going into the cistern. It was for the ancient city of Dara. It could hold 1,500 square meters of water. And I just read that off a sheet outside. I didn't know that much coming in. But yeah, check it out. This is crazy big. So I think at some point the water would like come up to this level if it was a rainy season or anything like that. But during the summer it's pretty dry out here, so I think 1,500 meters might have been exactly what they needed. So the interesting thing about this is down there, ancient Roman ruins. Up here, currently occupied house. The story goes they didn't know these ruins existed when they built it, but I don't know how you miss them.
One of the interesting things about this drive is you're actually going right along the border of Syria. Literally, it's right next to the road, but it's quite a big border. So there's barbed wire and then like 2 cement walls, and who knows what's on the other side of those walls. So there's no real issues with it in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, it feels fairly safe. There's nothing really going on. And I think the whole thing in Syria sort of died down at this point. Like, yeah, it's been interesting to see, because that is a piece of history. That's not the best part of history, but it did happen, and it was fairly recent. So it's interesting to see in the future. Maybe they'll start, connecting some of these streets again. But for now, it seems like it's a pretty secure border still. You still see some military transport going up and down. So fairly militarized border, I'd say, just based on what I was seeing, like a lot of military outposts and stuff. But it's a fairly secure border, so I don't think there's anything to worry about.
We are in Midyat, and I'm back on baby duty, but yeah, welcome to Midyat. This is a city where a lot of Turkish soap operas are filmed, and it's just like Mardin. It's got that old feel to it, but in a little bit of a different way. The architecture here is a little bit more flat, I guess you could say. It's not built on a hill, but it's just as old and just as beautiful. Look at all this. Midyat, it looks like what's happened is underneath the house is just a maze of caves and sort of, I guess, basement rooms have been carved out. It's really cool down here, like literally, and very interesting. We're gonna go exploring a bit more. So Midyat is a lot like Mardin. You've got these long streets that just go on forever. The architecture is slightly different, but it's still similar to Mardin. You can see a lot of similarities in the color of the bricks and everything like that. But it's a little different, a little less touristic, I'd say, but still beautiful. Alright, here you can see pretty much the whole city from here. It's a beautiful view. Definitely worth checking out. We've got a cafe over there with more beautiful views, but we're gonna actually go higher because I think it gets better. Welcome to Gobekli Tepe, the oldest ever city or temple or whatever you want to call it that's ever been found. One of those sites that archaeologists don't want to admit exists, or at least a lot of archaeologists don't want to admit that, because it's so old, it causes us to rewrite human history.
While Gobekli Tepe is an active archaeological dig site, it's also a museum. So if you're looking for access to Gobekli Tepe with an audio guide, you simply pay 155 Turkish liras.
So Gobekli Tepe is over 12,000 years old. Its construction has taken place over 1,000 years. And the craziest thing about this is the construction gets more advanced the further back you go. So it's almost like the civilization that built Gobekli Tepe was deteriorating as they built it. To get there, you've actually got to take a bus. So you buy your tickets, then you head up to the buses. After seeing the museum, of course. There, right? And behind me is Gobekli Tepe. So this place is about 12,000 years old. This is crazy. These structures are so old that it literally redefines what we know about the Neolithic period. Originally, it was thought that humans could not have built something like this so long ago, but the fact that's here shows that that's obviously wrong. So one of the interesting things about Gobekli Tepe is people really didn't think this was possible until they discovered it. It was discovered in the 1990s, and originally a lot of people didn't want to talk about it because it was just so different. But yeah, if you look through this, you can see that the architecture and a lot of the drawings and designs are things that you'd expect of a slightly more advanced civilization. And the interesting thing about Gobekli Tepe is it changes the way we think about how human civilization developed. Originally it was thought agriculture came about, and that was where we got gods and religion and everything like that from. But this is supposedly, and there's some debate about that, a religious site, which if that's true would mean that religion likely came about first and then agriculture. Interesting.
While we don't know much about Gobekli Tepe or the civilization that created it, the mystery gets deeper and deeper with every passing year. Before the 1990s, we didn't even think such a civilization could have existed. In the 1990s, a farmer took an artifact in to a variety of museums.
It was not until one specific archaeologist, Klaus Schmidt, saw this artifact and got excited that Gobekli Tepe was discovered. Digs had been conducted previously, but Klaus Schmidt knew exactly where to dig, or he knew exactly what to do. He went to the villagers, asked them where they thought he should dig, followed their advice, and he found the oldest known human civilization. What makes this even more interesting is, while this is the oldest known human civilization, Gobekli Tepe, even though it's over 12,000 years old, is not the oldest known settlement site. Since the discovery of Gobekli Tepe, other sites have been unearthed. Sites such as Hamzan Tepe, Karathan Tepe, Harbitsuvana Tepe, and a host of others that I will be also unable to pronounce. One of the more interesting things that you'll see at Gobekli Tepe are these carvings. The carvings of animals that are not necessarily local to the area. The most interesting of the carvings being the lizard that you're seeing in the background, or at least what's theorized to be a lizard. Some people say it's a lion, some people say a cat, nobody really knows. But the reason this is so interesting is because it is actually carved into the pillar, and it shows a level of craftsmanship that you would never expect to see in a civilization so old. Additionally, you wouldn't even expect them to have the tools to make such a carving possible.
So one of the interesting things about Gobekli Tepe is it's still being discovered. So only 15% of the site's actually been dug up, and there's still a ton of discoveries left to be made. So what I'm saying in this video might not be true in even a year or two, and that's something I think that scares a lot of archaeologists, but it's also very exciting because this is all new. It's a whole new civilization that's being uncovered here. They think it was hunter-gatherers, they think it was a temple, they think that there were animal sacrifices or lots of meat eaten here, but who's to tell?
For those interested in learning more about Gobekli Tepe, there's even a museum in Urfa that has a ton of artifacts that have been excavated from this site. Some of those artifacts include human skulls and bones.
With only a small percentage of Gobekli Tepe having been dug up so far, there is still quite a bit to be discovered. As you can see back behind me, there are completely new dig sites being undergone right now. So every year, there's a chance that we find something new out about this civilization that we literally know nothing about. We don't know if they had any sort of written language. We don't know how they did what they did. We just know that they did it. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, it's quite breathtaking actually to see what this civilization managed to accomplish and how little we know about them. It's humbling to think that we know so little about our past, that a whole civilization could exist and die over thousands of years without us even knowing about it. You think we know everything that there is to know about at least what types of people inhabited the earth before us, but this proves all that wrong. We don't even know what tools they had. Supposedly when all this was done, humans hadn't even invented the wheel, which, yeah, I don't believe it. They're dragging 2-ton stones for 2 kilometers, which is about a mile, and they don't have wheels. It's crazy how much we don't know. And just to give you an example back here, this is something that's still being excavated. So Gobekli Tepe is currently a work in progress, and something new is being discovered almost every year. So yeah, this video will hopefully be out of date very soon, because hopefully that means we've learned more about this crazy ancient civilization.
Welcome to Gaziantep, a city that's over 2,000 years old, has been conquered by a variety of empires, but it's known first and foremost for its food. That's right, that's because the food is just that amazing. It's known as a world gastronomy city, and it's one of those cities that if you're a foodie, you just have to visit. So what exactly is it known? The big things here would be pistachio dishes, pistachio coffee, baklava, pistachio bread, and a ton of other things, including pistachio cakes. And it's known for lahmacun kebabs, and just in general, some really amazing Turkish food. A lot of the cuisine things that come from Turkey, a lot of the cuisines in Turkey that locals and international travelers alike love, all came from Gaziantep. Now let's get ready for some amazing food, some amazing sights, a few castles, and a ton of fun. All right. right, so right now we're walking through Old Gaziantep. Old Gaziantep dates back about 1,000 plus years, and it's too narrow in here for cars to get by. So like most old sort of Turkish cities, you've got sort of one main road cars can go down, and then all these side alleys that you can explore. Let's check it out. Now we're headed up to the Gaziantep Castle. So originally the way this castle started was the Hittites. They used this as a watchtower. So there's just one tower up here. And then at a later date, the Romans came along and they actually built a legit castle. So that's what we're about to see. All right, so this castle in Gaziantep actually holds quite a bit of history here that even dates back to the 1920s. So the way it worked, the Romans built it all up and everything like that. After World War I, the French and the British took over most of what was the Ottoman Empire. One of the historically relevant battles that happened right here with defenders fighting for Turkish freedom in this very castle. Crazy. Here we are at the top of Antep Castle, or Gaziantep Castle. Back in the 1920s, this was actually a focal point of the resistance that led to the formation of modern day Turkey. So it's sort of cool to be in a place with so much history. So that was Gaziantep Castle. Definitely worth a visit, and it's really cool to see like a castle that takes advantage of the local landscape to really create a fairly defensive point. Right over here, we've got a bit of a moat, it looks like. So there used to be water here, and then it looks like there was a tunnel running alongside the edge of this hill, and it has little slits in it. So my guess is defenders could sit and fire from those slits into people trying to cross the moat. And there's a drawbridge or bridge right behind me back here. Yeah, pretty cool piece of history. It's interesting to see just how these defenses work. It looks like a pretty deep moat. I'd say it's probably like 10-20 feet deep at parts. So it's not something that you can just wade across. You need to be swimming it. And in the gear that in the gear of the times, I couldn't imagine swimming that with a sword or pickaxe or whatever. It's craziness to see, and it's craziness to imagine the audacity of someone that would try to undertake attacking this castle. This is So this is one of the cool things about these Turkish cities and stores and houses. You go to them and there's a whole like underground component that's just so old. Like look at these pillars. These are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And it's just underneath a random store that we went to buy some spices. And this isn't like abnormal, this is the norm. Also, this is where they make the olive oil that they sell here. Hi.
After a long day exploring Gaziantep, we went to a restaurant called Imam Kadash Kebab ve Baklav Salunu. At least that's how I think it's pronounced. I probably got some of it wrong. What we had is we started off with a shepherd salad, which is what you see here. Then we moved on to lahmacun, which is a nice sort of Turkish flatbread. You got a little bit of lamb on it, some sort of spices mixed in, and then you add some parsley and lemon. After that, we had a kebab with yogurt, so that's called El Nazik. It's a really delicious kebab. It has the perfect blend of sort of spices, meats, and everything else. And then we finished off the meal with some baklava. It was all delicious, and I definitely recommend going here. The
The next day, we kick things off right with a trip to the Sigma Mosaic Museum. This is a world-renowned mosaic museum and the biggest one in the world. The amazing thing about this museum is everything that you see inside of it has been found in this area of Turkey. It dates back to the Hellenistic Greek periods and the Roman Empire, and these mosaics are found in many ruins, and some of them are even found in occupied houses. The owners were undergoing a renovation project. They pulled up an old wooden or tile floor, and underneath it they found pristine works of art. They contacted the museum pulled that artwork out, and renovations continued. It blows my mind to think that you could be living above such a marvel and not even know it until you decided to undergo a renovation. You pull up floors that are damaged, dinged, and dirty, and you find this amazing work of art dating back hundreds or maybe even 1,000 years. It's mind-blowing to think that's how things work in this area of Turkey, but it really is. This mosaic right here is called the Gypsy Girl. It is one of the most revered mosaics in this museum, and the eyes of this mosaic are amazing. It uses the same technique that the Mona Lisa does to have the eyes track you wherever you are in the room. And for the last stop of the trip, we've got the Gaziantep Bronze Market. This is a market dating back hundreds of years that has an amazing selection of wares. Everything from copper pots to copper spoons to knives to swords to axes to purses, and even spices or baklava can be found here. Perusing through the stalls, it is amazing to see the variety of options, and you know they are made locally because you can see a lot of the craftsmen working right inside their shop. And with that, it's time to say goodbye to Gaziantep, at least for now. Welcome to Istanbul. It's one of my favorite cities in the world, and I've been here a few times. So what we're going to be doing is something a little bit different. We're going to be doing it more like a local, just exploring neighborhoods and seeing what's out there. The Blue Mosque, the Hagia Sophia, all of that stuff is amazing, but I've seen it before, so we're going to be doing something that I haven't done. So let's go. After driving by some pre-game festivities for the local football team, we're headed to Taksim. You don't know Istanbul at all, or if you visited here a million times, Taksim is the place to go. It's always changing, always different. There's millions of people, and there's millions of things to do. Tonight, we've got two goals. Visit the Galata Tower and get some amazing Turkish food before our baby gets tired. Luckily, neither of these feats should be too hard. The street we're walking down right now is Istiklal Street. It is the heart and soul of Istanbul, and at the end of this street, we will reach Galata Tower, and lining this street are thousands of world-class restaurants. And in Turkey, one thing that you get in Istanbul that you can't get anywhere else is an insane variety in the types of Turkish foods that you can try without going more than a couple blocks. You see, right on Istiklal Street, you can find Turkish cuisines from all over Turkey. Traditionally in Turkey, you're only able to sample cuisines in select villages or cities or areas. For instance, if you go to Mardin, which is where we're coming from, one dish that you can pretty much only find there is tantuni. It's this like Turkish take on Mexican wraps. We've got this nice specific flatbread. It's mixed in with this sort of ground beef that just tastes spectacular. You put some lemon on it, you put a little bit of onion, some parsley in there, some isot, and it just tastes amazing. It's got a little bit of spice to it if you want it to. And it is perfect. It's spectacular, and you can't find this anywhere else in Turkey except for Mardin and Istanbul. Having come from Mardin, though, tantuni is now what we're going to be going for tonight. This is the Galata Tower, by the way. We made it to the end of the street. The baby is perfectly happy, and now it is time to settle on what to eat. After a lot of debating, we stopped for some mussels, which only my wife had because I'm allergic to shellfish, and then we went and got some baklava, but I didn't record that because everything ran out of batteries. So let's move on to the next day.
Cool car.
All right, and just like that, we're in the colorful neighborhood of Balat. So Balat's an older neighborhood. It was, once upon a time, it was more Greek and Armenian and Jewish. Now it's just a mixture of people from all over. It's got these really colorful houses, though.
It looks spectacular and really brighten up the area. There's also a ton of people taking Instagram photos in front of them.
All right, so after walking around for a bit, I'd say Balat's definitely a cool place. There's a lot of different architecture here that you're not going to find in a lot of Istanbul. It's a little bit more run down in places, but some of the buildings are really well done. Painting them all sorts of bright colors. You got pink, blue, yellow, all sorts of crazy colors, and really makes for a vibrant picture. So if you're looking for an Instagram picture, Balat might be the place to come. But yeah, if you like architecture, it's also a cool place to visit. Not all of it is completely up to date. There's still some buildings that are a bit run down, but overall it is really cool to see, and it's a piece of history. So that's the Balat neighborhood in Istanbul. So yeah, it's a very colorful neighborhood, some amazing architecture, and as we were leaving, we didn't get a chance to see this, but it does have some very like cute cafes, antique shops, and just a really nice walking street. I'm going to show you some video from that, but yeah, if you get a chance, that's definitely the street you want to go to. We went to just those Instagrammable houses, which are cool to see. But I think overall, you really want to be you want to go to the cafes, you want to go to the antique shops. That's the street to go to. That's definitely where most of the tourists are, and that's where you should be going. So now we're headed to Karakoy. So the big reason I want to come here is they've got this like umbrella street. It's only, from what I've seen, it's only like a block, but it's supposed to look really cool, and it seems like it's got some really nice bars and cafes in there.
Our daughter was asleep, so I went on ahead, and this street is exactly what I thought it would be. It's just the perfect place to relax. There's no cars, it's all pedestrians, and it really has that chill vibe I was looking for.
Those umbrellas look amazing in photos, amazing in videos, as you can see. So I definitely recommend it, and the places there are actually pretty reasonable. Drinks aren't too much. You're talking about 80 to 90 liras for a beer, 40 liras if you're looking for a milkshake. Pretty decent. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but at the same time, it's a great place to go get some pictures, take a nice little pit stop, and then continue on with your adventures through Istanbul. Now on to Babik.
I don't know.
Maksimumdan yaz moda kampanya, maksimum mobilden kampanya.
All right, so brief change of plans. We're going to be going to Ortica instead, which is a Bosphorus sort of adjacent neighborhood. It's literally right along the Bosphorus. So we're going to be getting some amazing views. Babek was a little too far away for a 5 o'clock appointment that we've got. So going to Ortica instead.
Besides for a beautiful view of the Bosporus, in Ortega you'll be able to find a lot of handmade clothing and jewelry for purchase if you're looking for the perfect souvenir, and it also is known for having amazing kumpir and waffle, but don't expect American waffles.
Alright, and right behind me are those Ortaköy views that I'm talking about. Behind me you see the Bosphorus, and then across from that you see Asia. And that's the Bosphorus River. If you know anything about Istanbul, that's the river that sort of gives it all its power. It's the one way to get into Europe if you're shipping anything, and that makes it extremely important, not just for Turkey, but for pretty much the whole world, especially Europe. All right, and that is Ortica. So right along the Bosphorus, it's a great place for taking a walk or just sort of enjoying your time, but it is a bit of a smaller area. Parking there, we paid about 50 liras for 1 hour, so it's a little expensive, but it's worth seeing. Maybe not the best place to visit with the car, but definitely a good place to visit, especially if you're looking to take a ferry across the way.
With our time in Istanbul quickly drawing to an end, we had one more thing to do. And that was go to Asia, which sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, because what we're really doing is just crossing the Bosphorus. We're going from the European side of Istanbul to the Asian side of Istanbul. Fun fact, Istanbul is one of the only cities you can do this in. So one of the cool things I like to say is I've actually been to 3 continents in under 12 hours. And just like that, we're in Asia. This is Badat Street. So this is one of the busier walking streets on the Asian side of Istanbul. We're here on a Sunday night, so it's not as busy as it usually is, but it's still pretty vibrant. This is a wet burger. It's probably been over a decade since I've had one. What a wet burger is basically a sloppy joe. It's a nice sort of toasted bun. You've got some beef that's been ground up. You've got a nice little sort of slop on it, if you will. And of course, you can't forget a slice of cheese.
And that's it for Istanbul. We'll be back, but it'll be a while.
Snake right there. I don't think it's poisonous.
Today we're going to be doing one of the best day trips in Istanbul, or outside of Istanbul. What we're doing is we're going to catch a ferry and take it to Prince's Island. The ferries you got to be careful with because they do have a time schedule and they don't leave like every hour or something like that. So the ferry we're trying to catch leaves at 11 a.m. and whether or not you believe it, we're running late. So hopefully we make the ferry. If we don't, this won't even be a video. Barely made it, but we're on the boat and we're headed to Prince's Island. Looks beautiful though, it's a really nice trip. It's something different. You usually don't get to take a ferry places. So one of the cool things about the trip out here, you see all these different islands in the backdrop. And it's hard to know like which one you're going to. The first time I tried to do this was in 2012 and we got off at the wrong island. So make sure you're 100% that the island you're getting off at is the actual island you want to see. Otherwise, you might just end up going to a fish restaurant and then headed back to Istanbul. But yeah, there's a ton of islands going out and you want to explore every one, but the problem is you just don't have enough time. The recommendation would be Prince's Island, specifically Büyükada, which is basically Big Island. So you want to go to the Prince's Island sort of group and Büyükada, the Big Island, because that's where there's the most stuff to do.